Absolutely, yeah. Look,
100%.
absolutely, it does. Yeah,
Yeah, 100%.
absolutely. And being a challenge like this,
100%.
it'd be interesting to see. Yeah, absolutely. And like you kind of,
100%.
absolutely, absolutely. And who knows?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I mean,
Absolutely, yeah. He's doing
100%. All that.
Welcome to the Absolutely 100% podcast, where combat sports journalist Dan Meehan and featherweight mixed martial artist Justin Lockjaw Van Heerden cover all the latest talking points from the Aussie fight scene.
All right, here we are. Welcome, everyone. It's episode 46 of the Absolutely 100% podcast. It's taken us a little while to pull this one together, but here we are. So that's it's a relief, and we're back on track. Of course, I'm here, my co-host Justin Van Heerden. How are you, mate?
I'm good. Episode 46, which is like the age that I feel more often than not these days. I don't know about you, but it's most days I'm waking up and that's where that's how I'm feeling. So it kind of resonates.
You and me both. Yep. 36 going on 46 over here. So and I'm not even a fighter. You know, I don't train all day every day. So I'm not really sure what my excuse is, to be honest.
I feel like I'm connecting more and more as each day goes past with what DC said at that press conference, where he like sneezed and threw his back out. It's not going well.
Admittedly, I've done that before, and before the age of 30 as well. So I'm in trouble.
Yeah, it's all downhill from here. I keep people keep saying that, but I'm starting to see it.
But for absolutely 100%, it's all uphill, and we're here. We're recording, of course. So we may as well kick this off. Obviously you've just had a fight recently, probably about 3 weeks ago now, I think, against George Mangos. So I mean, it was like, there was a lot of build up to this one. Obviously, there's been a lot of sort of hype about, you potentially sort of moving on to a big promotion and those sorts of things. So it was a high stakes fight. It didn't go your way. So yeah, I guess, how are you feeling about all of that?
Yeah, obviously, like I spoke to you on the night after the fight. Like initially, there was like that feeling of just frustration because, losing does suck, and we're all competitors at the end of the day. Like you don't really want to, you don't want to lose, but but then once I kind of like, sat down and really sort of broke it down for myself, and then especially after I watched it back and all that sort of stuff, it kind of wasn't as detrimental as I thought it was going to be. And looking at the fight for what it was, like obviously, when it comes, and I've said this already, and we've kind of, people have kind of shared this sentiment. It's just one of those things where literally and figuratively, George's back was against the wall and he had to go for something and, pull something crazy out of the bag. And he did. He went for like some, Hail Mary sort of submission and pulled it off. And that's why kind of like, I didn't come out there and, after the fight and, try and be like, make any excuse or anything like that. The guy pulled off something that was like a Hail Mary thing. He went for it, he executed it and, got the win. So it's like, I can't really sit there and be like, oh, fuck, nah. And, the frustration is not even really there about it because it's like, you could run that back 100 times and, that's probably the one time you pull it off, right? And that's why we love the sport. That's why we love MMA, because the moments like that, like, when we sort of, Dana White said it a couple of times, like he sells holy shit moments for a living. And that's like one of those things, right? It's like one of those moments where, someone's losing a fight and has to like pull something out of the bag and then pull it off. Like I've been in fights where I've had to do that. We've seen that happen so many times at the top of the hill in the UFC, and then like when one in PFL, when there's these high stakes moments when people need to like show up and pull it out of the fire. We've seen that happen. So obviously when it happens to you, it sucks and you lose. You're like, fuck, that's not what I want to happen. But as like a fan of MMA and someone that loves this sport, it's like, you kind of sit there and you go, holy fuck, it's insane. That's why we love the sport. But yeah, like I said, I watched the fight back, obviously, and there was still plenty of things to take out of it. Like things that I obviously need to adjust and, still kind of build on, but then also some good things to still take out of it. And like I said, like I knew I was up as each round was going by. Like I knew I was winning each round up until that point. And heading into the fourth, like had it, progressed past that end of the third and into the fourth, I was, my confidence was going through the roof going into if I had, gone into those championship rounds because, I was starting to feel just more and more fresh as the fight was continuing on. Whereas I could feel him kind of, fading and realizing like, oh shit, like I gotta do something now or else it's going to be a problem. And then even watching it back, like, round one, that's, you can almost score that a 10-8 round. And then, 2 and 3, I felt same sort of thing, quite comfortable throughout the rounds. Like, he obviously had like a couple of moments where he was going for those sort of big one-hitter quitter type techniques to try and finish the fight, which is kind of what it felt like in there. But also then when I watched it back, that kind of, resonated a bit more, that's kind of what he was doing. He was just trying to look for those big things to try and get me out of there. And I don't blame him because, the guy's not really gone past the first round so far in his pro career. So you don't know how your body's going to go. Even if you had a great camp, which I'm sure he did, and he was in shape, which I'm sure he was, you don't know how your body's going to respond the first time you're sort of in those later parts of a fight and those rounds, like especially in that 4th and 5th round. Like if you've never been there before and you're not putting yourself in that position in the lead up to the fight and making yourself uncomfortable, it's pretty rough to get off, to have to get off that stool and come out for that. It's almost harder to fight that 10-minute period in the 4th and 5th than it is to fight the 15 minutes leading up to it. Whether the fight's going your way or not, it's just a grind. So there's all those things that kind of like factored in and plenty of things to take out of it and kind of like look at and go, I could have done this, or maybe I should have done this. But, I think this, you and I kind of spoke about this. I think the biggest thing that's sort of, I can look at that fight and take out of it is, I think the intent of me, being aggressive and coming forward and actually putting hands on him just wasn't there. And that was probably the biggest thing that was missing on the fight. At the start of the third, if you watch it back, like at the start of the third round, I put him on the back foot and pressed forward. And I could, you could tell he didn't respond well to that. And even when I hit him a few times, then when I had him on the back foot, I could, I could see, I was like, oh, fuck, he doesn't like this. So I think that's probably the biggest thing when I look at the fight. That's the biggest takeaway, not even the submission. Like just, that's like we said, you get caught. He made some beautiful adjustments and was able to finish the position and get that sort of done. But the biggest thing that I think was missing from that fight was just the aggression and the, putting him on the back foot and, having that intent to kind of be like, you're in here with me, I'm not in here with you.
Yeah, it's probably a bit of damage, right? Like, obviously I've already sent you your pointers, so you're welcome, but obviously, yeah, it was probably just a bit of damage, right? Like maybe a bit of ground and pound when you sort of had that, had that top position, a little bit more aggression standing up, as you talked about. Maybe that was sort of the difference. A bit more damage might have, possibly sort of slowed him down a bit more, do you reckon?
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing too, because obviously I didn't want to, even on the ground, like I didn't want to just rush a position to try and go for a submission and kind of force that and then, lead to him kind of just creating a scramble or anything like that and then, kind of losing position and him just being able to give him those openings to go for those crazy things like those and jump on something or anything like that. But yeah. But I mean, that's one of those things we can look at it and go, okay, here's what I could have done better or what I should have done. And then moving forward into these other fights, I can be like, all right, well, I'm just going to add that in. And that's what I need to that's what I sort of need to do. That's what was missing. But then at the same time, look at the things that I did well and go, yep, cool. Like there's a few things that we worked on in the camp that I pulled off in there that I was actually, that's starting to click for me now, like new things that we're working on throughout the whole camp. And I actually got to like implement those live in a fight in like the high stakes situation. So I can look at that and go, cool, that's starting to click for me now. I can add that in moving forward. But yeah, obviously there's, I'm going to be like a harsh critic for myself and then, certainly Joe and that's going to be, sort of harsh critics in their own way as well. And just, tell you what you need to hear, which is always cool. And like I sort of, everyone can probably, that doesn't already know, can just see it. Like we give each other so much shit at freestyle. So you can imagine when I walked into the gym on the Monday after my fight, like I was already copping it. I think, we were grappling on the Monday morning and then I was grappling with one of my training partners, Tara, and she like went for a triangle on me. And, I had Joe and Colby on the sideline, like heckling me, being like, oh, fuck, you might as well just pack up if you get submitted by another triangle. Like, but it makes it fun, it makes the frustration of losing all that sort of stuff kind of disappear, because at the end of the day, you just kind of pick yourself up and you go, oh, fuck, you laugh about it now and just move forward, because it is what it is. Like, you can't change it. I can't go back. I'm not Emrahan. I can't go change my record, you know. So you just got to kind of deal with it. You got to move forward.
Yeah, it was on television, unfortunately. So yeah, there's not really any way you can reverse that one, is there?
Nah, I can't slide George a $50 note and be like, hey, can we just sweep this under the rug?
Just pretend this didn't. Just never speak of this again.
Yeah, nah.
So the finish came in the third round with 4 seconds left on the clock. Obviously, that was obviously something that you found out after the fact, but that's obviously must have probably added to the frustration, I imagine. I guess with that sort of triangle position that you were in, I guess what would have happened? Like, could you have sort of held out for a few more seconds where you were about to go out? Can you sort of put us in that, put us in your shoes in that moment?
It wasn't so much the actual sort of choke part of the triangle that was the problem. It was my arm. Like, I was unaware of how long was left, and I was already having that internal monologue with myself of being like, I've got to do whatever I can for my arm not to break, because it was already so hyperextended. And so like if you watch it back, and I'm going to see if I can get the actual like cage side view of it, where you could see how fucked my arm was in the position that it was in. And that was sort of the main thing. I was just talking to myself going like, I need to keep my arm, I'm going to need my arm these next 2 rounds, so I can't let my arm break. And then, obviously he adjusted and then got like an even gnarlier angle and was able to sort of, when he did lock his legs that bit tighter to sort of try emphasizing going for the choke a bit more, that actually put more pressure on the actual elbow joint and my arm. So I was like, then it was getting to that point where I was like, my arm's going to go. Like, what are we going to do here? And then I was just like, it was kind of like one of those things where I didn't know how much time was left. The last sort of cue I had for time was when we were standing up against the fence, and I heard my corner say, time to work, which is like, means there's like a minute left. And I heard his team say like, we only got about a minute, George. We got to go. So that was kind of the last bit I had for time. And then obviously he jumped the triangle, and that's all happening. So in the process of that, I had no idea how much time was left. And then, obviously finding out that it was 4 seconds. Yeah, for sure. I was if I knew how much time was left, 100%, I'm going to gamble it and go, either my arm's breaking or I'm surviving the position, and, we're fine. We're sweet. But like, it was just one of those things. Cause I was like, obviously if you knew there's 4 seconds left, you can gamble it and go, fuck it. My arm's either going to go or I'm going to make it and we're going to be sweet. But not knowing how much time was left, like in my mind, I was like, fuck, I don't know how much time was left. There's another 45 seconds or 40 seconds left. There's no way I can hold out. My arm's for sure going to break, and then it's just going to break for no reason, because I was never going to make it for 45 seconds without my arm breaking anyway, if you know what I mean. And then you're sitting there thinking like, if you let your arm break when there was like a minute left in the round, like you did it for no reason, and now I can't fight for 3-4 months because my arm's completely snapped. Like, so, it's just one of those sort of things where you're having in what feels like an eternity, but it's only a couple of seconds, you're having this like inner monologue and discussion with yourself, trying to figure out what's going on. And it was just one of those things. But yeah, obviously finding out there was only 4 seconds, that did suck. That was probably the most annoying part about it. Not even losing, just knowing that the time that was left in the round.
Yeah, is time just kind of like a blur in there? Like, obviously there's a lot of adrenaline. It's a really sort of, I guess, a stressful situation fighting. When you're in there, is it sort of really hard to keep track of time?
No, not normally. Like, especially the amount of fights I've had now, it's like I'm pretty comfortable in there, so I don't really feel. Yeah, I'm not really like feeling much of that. But the one thing that I did sort of notice in this fight, compared to some of my other ones, it felt like the 5 minutes was actually going by a lot faster. Because normally obviously I'm so in tune with fighting 5-minute rounds, and when you're in the gym and you're doing meat grinders and spiders and sparring and stuff, like you can kind of, without even looking at a clock, you can kind of know where you're at in the 5-minute period because you're so used to it. But one thing I did notice, like when I went back to the stool after the first round, I was kind of like, damn, that was a fast round. And then we went at it again, and it felt like we engaged in a couple times, and then obviously I took him down and got control again, got like on top on the ground, and then it just felt like before I knew it, I heard him say like, there's only like a minute left in the round, and I was like, damn, these rounds are going by quick. And then, the same thing heading into the third. Like, before I knew it, when I heard them say there was a minute left in the third round, I was like, fuck, it's another quick round. I was like, we're going to be in the fourth. We're going into the championship rounds now. I'm like, and I was like, look, the rounds are going by fast. I knew I was up, and I was like feeling good. And I knew the way it works, that even if the pace increased in the fourth and fifth, I still had a second win that I hadn't even hit yet. Like, I haven't even hit that point yet. So I was like, it was a weird experience, because that's the first time it felt like in a while that it felt like the rounds were just going by like real quick.
Yeah, there you go. So, we don't want to sort of harp on it too much, but can you put us in your shoes, I guess, after the finish? Like, you sort of took a minute on the canvas there. You could see obviously the disappointment was sort of setting in. I guess how did you feel afterwards? Obviously it's a high stakes fight, 6-fight win streak. It sort of had gone up in, well, not really gone up in smoke, but it had come to an end at least for now. I guess how were you feeling in the immediate aftermath?
Yeah, frustrated, very frustrated, and just kind of not even about like my win streak being snapped or anything like that. I was just frustrated in, like, more so with the fact that because initially I was sitting there just thinking like, fuck, like, I can't believe that just happened, because I was like, things were just going so well. And then, but it was more so just the frustration of like not going out there and getting the result to kind of showcase how hard I worked to prepare for it and, get ready for the fight. That's more so what sucks. And, knowing and getting the result for my training partners and my coaches and stuff, that like for what they invested into the camp with me, that was kind of the, more what frustrated me. It was just like, I know how hard I worked, and even with the opponent changes and all that sort of shit happening and all the craziness about it all, just, I put in like the work like I normally do, but I like, even those last two, like when I look at sort of my last two spiders and stuff like that, man, like how hard I was pushing, the pace I was setting, and how I felt, I was just like, I was prepared as best as you could be. So I think that's what was more the thing that just hit me initially. It was just like, you worked so hard for those however many weeks, and then it just, in like you said, in like a couple of seconds, it just kind of just disappeared and went away. But then it was kind of like, after obviously when I got out the back and kind of just took a minute or two to kind of just feel frustrated and kind of deal with that, it was like, after that, it was just like, get back to normal. It's just kind of like, all right, well, we'll just go again. So, yeah, that's what I mean. Initially, there was lots of, like, I was very frustrated. Obviously, I took a minute in there to just kind of like put my head on the canvas and just kind of get myself back to a point where I could, just not take away from the rest of the, I guess, occasion of that, like not take away from George's moment or anything like that. Because at the end of the day, there's no point in me getting up, being frustrated and carrying on when I don't need to. Like, it's not going to change anything. It's not going to change the result, first off. And also, I don't need to ruin this dude's moment because something didn't work out for me. You know what I mean? Like, I could just, that's why I kind of just took that moment to just feel frustrated. And then I remember it was like Colby came over and like put his hand on my shoulder and then just leaned in and said to me, he's just like, all right, man, pick yourself up. Let's carry ourselves out like champions, because we're at the end of the day, that's how you are. Like, let's do that. And then that's why I was kind of like, yeah, fair. Like, let's do that. Like, let me just do that and take the attention off me being frustrated about losing and just kind of let the light shine on George, who got the result and got the job done.
Yeah, there you go. And, you moved on pretty quickly as well. Like, that was one thing that was a little bit, I guess, surprising to me on the night. But I guess knowing you, I probably shouldn't have been surprised. But, after the fight, I could actually, from where I was sitting, I could see through to the dressing room and I could see your team. I could see Jarrett and Amina and Colby and stuff all kind of sitting around quietly. No one was really saying anything. I was like, oh, geez, where's Justin? This looks like a bit of a scene back here. So, I sent you a message saying, bad luck, you suck, that sort of stuff. And I didn't say that, by the way, before people jump down my throat. And then you sent me a message back and you're like, oh, where are you? I'm just near the bar. I was like, oh, Really? He's
Yeah.
already out there. And yeah, there you were, just sort of chatting to people. You're already sort of talking about fighting again in a couple of months. Can you tell us a little bit about that sort of that turnaround from being kind of frustrated and disappointed in the cage to maybe 20 minutes or so later, just moving on and thinking about the next fight?
I think that just comes with the experience of how many fights I've had, and obviously like dealing with losses before. Like it's not like it's the first time I've lost or anything like that. But I guess for me, what allowed it to be that quick sort of just transition was just knowing that there's always another fight. But at the same time, the last time I lost, I got levels better and went on an absolute tear. And I just knew in my head immediately, I was like, the exact same thing's going to happen now. And I was like, so I'm like, I just looked at it like that. I was like, I'm going to be able to fight again as soon as possible. I'm healthy. At the end of the day, I didn't get knocked out. I didn't get my arm broken. I didn't get any injuries or anything like that. I'm healthy. I'm fit. I can just get back into it and get another fight lined up. So that kind of like was exciting for me and just kind of made me go, okay, cool. I'll just go again. But then also knowing what happened last time I lost, then I went on a tear for, like 2-3 years or whatever, and just went on an absolute tear and a solid win streak and just ran through everyone. So looking at it like that, I was like, I'm just going to do that again. Like, I'm just going to get better and run through anyone in front of me until I, get back to where I want to be.
Yeah, definitely. And your daughter Junie played a role in that as well. One thing you mentioned to me, I don't know if you remember this, but after the fight, you mentioned to me that you spoke to your daughter on the phone, and it kind of just everything faded away in that moment. As a parent myself, I know what it's like. Once you're there with your kids, everything kind of everything sort of fades into insignificance. Really, all the other things in life. Can you tell us a little bit about that moment?
Yeah, man, I just grabbed my phone and I just looked at my phone because obviously, and all I need to do is like take that couple of seconds and even just like look at a photo or watch a video or something like that. And then everything in life just kind of like goes out, goes away. You kind of just in that, a place where all that stuff doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, life just keeps moving on. It's for 15 or 25 minutes a couple times a year, I'm Justin, the MMA fighter, and then the rest of the time, I'm just me. I'm just a guy that's just trying to go out there and take life for what it is, and just kind of be that person outside of that. But yeah, I train every day and I fight, and this is what I do. But like, really, it's like 3-4 times a year for, like I said, maybe 15, 25 minutes where you're actually the fighter. That's and but the rest of the time, no one, like across the board, but especially like little kids and that, like no one really gives a fuck. Like no one cares. It doesn't really matter. It matters for that night and that night only a couple times a year, and then the rest of the time it's like, who gives a fuck? Like no one really cares. I'll be honest, I don't really care. Like I don't really fucking sit there and kind of push. To be honest, I wouldn't even have I wouldn't talk about fighting at all if it wasn't my job, to be fair. And if I didn't love it, but I do, so I do. And yeah, it's really weird. Like at the end of it, because no one really cares, and especially little kids. Little kids do not give a fuck about any of this stuff. Yeah, so that kind of just makes you go, yeah, cool, it is what it is, and helps you kind of just deal with stuff a bit easier. Obviously, yeah, I can imagine if you didn't have those just reality checks from life, it'd be a lot harder to sort of process, I guess, and you would kind of get in your feelings about it a bit, and you'd be stumbling around the house for a couple of weeks going like, fuck's sake, I can't believe that happened. But there's always something else to focus on. And then I knew, same thing again, like I knew that there was other things there that I'm not going to take away from the other things that are, coming as a result of what happened on that night. Like Jarrett won his fight and beat Sam, and, so he still won his fight, sets him up to fight for the belt. And, I just kind of I'd rather focus on the good things that happened than worry about me losing a fight and making it about me. Like I couldn't really care less. So that's why it's kind of good that, my friends and that, and, like Colby and Amina and everyone like that were just kind of already the banter was just there, and it just kind of lets you kind of throw that off to the side. And then at the same time, I can celebrate and be happy and feel good for Jarrett. And even now, when I kind of look at it for what it is, like obviously I vacated my title at Eternal, went and had these 2 fights at Hex. Seb's now fighting for the featherweight title in August for Eternal. Jarrett's going to fight George Mangos in September for the Hex featherweight title. I've won a featherweight, I've won a couple of featherweight titles in Australia. Like, that's ticked off the list. But in a roundabout way, I got to look at what's happened and what's sort of come together these last couple of months. And it's set up my two teammates, two guys that I share the mats with every day, that I grind with and, do so much work with every day. It's set in some weird, unintentional kind of way. It's set them up to have these big opportunities and big fights that they deserve. And it's going to sort of elevate them, which elevates our team as a whole, and then elevates me in general again, because obviously both boys, they're fighting for titles. Both boys want to hit that next level and separate themselves from everyone else. So everyone's just kind of rising at the same time. And then that's going to make me sort of push to those new levels as well. So there's so many good things to take out of it. So it's at the end, it's funny because, like, when you lose fights, you can sit there and go, I lost, which you should do. You should still have that discussion with yourself and go, okay, I lost. That's fucking shit. I don't want that to happen again. Or at least, I want to make sure, do whatever I can to try and let that not happen again. But then at the same time, you can just go, there's always another fight. Like, I'm far, far from being done in this sport. I've got lots of fights left in me, and I'm very fortunate. I say this all the time to people. I've been pretty fortunate up until this point, touch wood, that I haven't had any crazy injuries, really. I haven't taken much damage in fights. I've been, very fortunate. So, my body's healthy. I'm good. So, I've got a long career still ahead of me. So, I'm just excited to kind of just get back in there and then, pick the momentum back up, get back on, finish the year. I want to have another fight. Obviously, I'm fighting in August, but I want to have another fight before the year's out, kind of finish the year on a 2-fight win streak, and just, look forward to what's next in 2025.
Exactly. You do have a fight in August, as we know. But before we get to that, obviously Hex 31, it was, like you kind of touched on there, it was a good night for your team until you came and took a giant shit on it, of course, at the end there. But Trent Girdham had a good win. It was a fast win, and obviously Jarrett got the decision against Sem. How do you sort of assess your teammates' performances on that night?
Both fights kind of went how I figured they'd go, to be honest. I thought as long as Jarrett was, like, for Trent's fight, that's pretty much the game plan that was there for that fight. And I kind of figured that's, sort of how it was going to pan out. And Trent was he told me when we were cutting weight, he was like, I feel like I can exploit this area and get a submission. And that's what he was able to do. And I think it's an experience thing that played a factor as well. And then knowing that his opponent was stepping in on short notice and stuff like that. So it was all going to all those things were playing in his favor to benefit him. So that wasn't a surprise. And then with Jarrett, I kind of just knew that if Jarrett was able to, avoid letting Sam get an established position in the first round where he can kind of work on his back or anything like that, I was pretty confident that Jarrett was just going to be able to do exactly what he did. And I kind of figured the fight would go the distance. I didn't actually think that either guy was going to, just based on how stylistically and just how both guys fight and how it was, I kind of, and with everything going into it, I kind of figured that it was going to go the distance. But I was stoked that obviously he was able to get the job done as well. And I was pretty confident that he won 2 rounds to 1. So obviously I'll give the 3rd round to Sam. But I feel like Jarrett just did work in his other 2 rounds and was able to showcase the preparation that he did for it. And, even in the times when he was in those compromising positions, he was able to sort of survive and deal with it and show the improvements that he's made in those areas as well. Because obviously in camp, he worked a lot of those positions because obviously Sam's dangerous in a lot of those positions. I thought it was a good fight, and I thought it was good for Jarrett too to be able to kind of have to work over 15 minutes and keep himself, in that, focused on what he needs to do and sort of stick to his game plan instead of kind of letting things go like he did in the Carnothy fight where he was just so set on hurting him that he just, he gave him those opportunities that he didn't need to.
Yeah, it's sort of I haven't watched that fight back actually, Jarrett versus Sem, but watching it live, I felt like Jarrett might have been up 2-0 going into the last, and you probably saw a little bit more urgency from Sem in that last round there. But yeah, it was kind of interesting that it ended up being a bit of a chess match in the end, after obviously all the kind of animosity going into it. And Jarrett kind of touched on in an interview afterwards. I watched his interview with Joel at Southern Cross Combat. He said, when Joel kind of put that to him, he was Jarrett was still kind of disappointed that he got a bit overexcited in the last round, sort of like he did against Khan. It's kind of like what you were touching on there. He sort of he gets a bit sort of wrapped up in sort of swept up in the fight a little bit, and he felt like he did that a little bit in the last round as well. But at least he was able to kind of contain it for, I guess, 2.5 rounds, and he won those rounds. So yeah, I guess it's a good result overall for Jarrett.
Yeah, 100%, and it's going to set him up quite nicely going into this fight with George for the belt, where he can take the sort of fights that he's had now since the fight with Khan and approach a 5-round championship fight, in a much sort of better way that's going to set him up to go out there and get the result.
Yeah, obviously we'll sort of get deep into that fight sort of closer to the date, but I guess how do you just a quick sort of touch on how that fight feels, Mangos versus Jarrett?
I think stylistically it's similar to this fight that he had with Sam, where I think George, it's like is going to have like a pretty clear thing that if I can get a hold of this dude or get to his back, that's going to be my best route to victory, or try and pull off some crazy shit like he did against me. But I feel like outside of that, it's going to be a hard fight for him to sort of kind of get the job done on the feet, because Jarrett is so hard to deal with on the feet. Just the way he moves, his timing, his footwork, the angles that he cuts, he's throwing stuff from such weird places. So it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of goes. I just feel like Jarrett's got more ways to win, and I feel like even now, especially with the fight with that I just had with George, going those extra couple rounds, but then getting a finish like that. Obviously the dude's undefeated and he's got a 100% finish rate, so his confidence is going to be at an all-time high, and even more so now than it was before. So it's going to be interesting to see how that factors in, and I just feel like it's just going to be one of those things where if George can't get to like a solid position in the grappling in the early stages of a fight, it's just going to be more and more Jarrett's fight to as the sort of rounds go by and as the minutes sort of tick by, and then outside of some crazy Hail Mary submission type shit, I feel like there's the ways for him to win kind of just go away as the fight progresses more and more and more into those later rounds.
How good is George Mangos? You've been in there, you've felt him now. He's only 20 years old, which is pretty wild, so it's still early days for him. How good is he, and how good can he be from your, it's a unique vantage point now?
Yeah, he's very good, man. He's very technical. He's obviously very technical, and he's like, and that's the thing too, man. He's still young. I think, obviously, being in there with him now and experiencing kind of that, he's very technical and he's very, very slick. But obviously, there's still those other factors that aren't quite there yet, because, like you said, he's in his early 20s. Like, in terms of being in there with him now and feeling kind of what he feels like, compared to the other people you've kind of fought, he doesn't have that man strength yet. Like, he still hasn't grown into being like a fucking, like a full-fledged man yet. Like, so once that happens, man, that's going to be like, obviously that elevates you again, because where he's so technical, people might get away with being able to shut a few bits and pieces down because they're just stronger and bigger. But once he kind of grows into that and kind of, that's going to factor in, then now you've got like a guy who's very technical, but he's also kind of matching strength and size with people, it makes it a problem. So, I feel like, his ceiling's very high, especially if you look at what he's been able to do now. So I feel like he can go out there and do some pretty crazy things in the sport. And like you said, he's only, he's in his early 20s, he's only young. And a loss for him in MMA, regardless of when that, when Jarrett goes out there and wins in September and takes his belt, a loss for George Mangos might be one of the scariest things we could see for a young, talented, motivated guy, because I imagine if he was to sustain a loss, he would go levels better than what he is now, and have that extra sort of motivation to come back and do work. So I feel like it's a win-win situation, right? Because obviously if he goes out there and wins, he's 5-0. If he gets another finish, and it sets him up in a pretty good spot. But if he goes and loses, he's only going to get extra motivation. He's probably going to level up tremendously, and he's going to be a fucking problem. Like, the dude's only, like you said, he's only like 21 or something, or 20. So, he's still like got a long road ahead, and he's still early days into his career. So I feel like the ceiling for him is quite high.
Definitely, yeah. All right, so speaking of your teammates, of course, you spoke about Seb Saleh as well. He fought at, I think we're a couple of weeks removed now from Eternal 86, but yeah, he got the job done against Gabriel Schlupp in the first round of the featherweight Eternal featherweight title tournament. Yeah, what did you make of his performance?
Yeah, just he went out there and did his thing, man. He did exactly what we kind of wanted him to do, on the game plan that kind of Joe set out for him, and then what we kind of drilled throughout the camp and wanted to focus on, and the areas that we could exploit. Obviously, our first round, there was a period there, like towards the end, where, he got his back taken, and was a bit of a, sticky situation to be in, but he stayed calm and did the things that we worked to sort of survive the position and take away any opportunities for a finish to happen. And then, once he cleared him sort of off his back, he was able to still hurt him immediately. Like, he went straight to the body and landed a combination and hurt Gabriel sort of towards the end of that round. So, and then rounds 2 and 3, he just kind of did his thing. He did, was just elusive and just used his footwork and used his speed and just blitzed in and out. Obviously, I think there was opportunities where he could have added on or gone, cut that angle and gone again, or, a bit more second phase opportunities that he could have capitalized on. But obviously, that's something that you look at after the fight and you go, okay, cool, that's something that I'm going to try and capitalize on next time, or add to the game. But I thought he killed it. Obviously, I thought, despite with the control in the first round, the fact that he cleared him off his back and then went straight on the offensive and landed some big damaging shots to the body, that kind of sealed that round, because up until the back take, he was winning that round. So I feel like, because I saw a couple of people like confused about him. They were like, "Oh, how is that unanimous?" Because that first round, Gabriel had some back control in that, but damage trumps that. You had back control, but you didn't do anything with it. So, and then you got Seb cleared the position and landed some hard shots to the body. So I feel like that kind of just cemented the round. So it was cool to see him just go out there and do his thing and just add on to the momentum that he's already had from these fights, with the knockout against Joe Davis, and then the flawless performance against Dan Jones, and now obviously just progressing on to that where he is now with Gabriel, and then setting himself up for a pretty big fight now in August.
Yeah, and obviously on the other side of the bracket, Dim Skilly's beat Oliver Schmid by TKO. Yeah, it's a bit of a bit of an ass whooping a little bit in the end there. Like, Dim sort of got his game going as he does. He's dangerous as long as the fight is standing. He's tough as nails. So yeah, what did you make of Dimps and his performance against Oliver?
I was very surprised to see, not really surprised, but I was surprised to see the pace that Dimps set, because he looked like he had a horrible weight cut. He looked half dead at the lanes. He looked horrible. So to see him sort of turn it up, like you said, once he got the momentum in that second and third. But I just think that that's just he's like you said, he's got heart for days, and he's just tough as nails. So the momentum swing happens for him, and then he's just not going to stop. And obviously, because he only won that first round, wasn't able to kind of get a finish or anything like that in that first round, but he controlled him for the entirety of the round pretty much, and won that round. And you kind of saw the frustration from Dimps right after the round ended. He was pacing back and forth. He didn't want to sit on the stool. He didn't want to listen to what his coaches were saying. He just wanted to get back out there because he wanted to put hands on Ollie. But I think what played a factor was the fact that I think he caught Ollie early in round 1, and I think Ollie just never really recovered from that. I think even Seb said he spoke to him afterwards, and he just said it felt like his legs just didn't come back, he just for the entirety of that. And then obviously round 2 was a lot of damage sustained, and kind of there's a good argument there that fight should have been stopped before the third. But because at the end of the day, like, he's a young dude. It's his third pro fight. You don't need to come out there for a third round and get your head punched in and get absolutely bashed just because you want to show that you're tough and you can do it. We already know you're tough. We saw your fight with Harry Webb. You guys were beating the fuck out of each other. Like, we don't need to do that. So if it was me, I would have stopped it, but I'm not his coach and his team, so I'm not going to, obviously they know their fighter better than what we would. And, I get no fighter wants anyone to stop their fight. They want to go out on their shield. We all know that. So, yeah, and that's what he did. He tried to come out in that third round and had to dig deep and try to, still get after it and went for it. But obviously Dimps was able to put some hands on him and do some damage and ultimately finish the fight, which another crazy Dimps Gillies fight, which we're sort of accustomed to now. So, yeah, it sets up a really interesting fight. Even just taking Seb being my teammate out of it, it's just stylistically it's an interesting fight because obviously you got Dimps who likes to get his work done on the feet. And this isn't a knock on him or anything, but he's arguably got no grappling, no wrestling. So, we know he's got that a one-dimensional approach of like, I'm going to walk you down and put hands on you and hit you until you either break or I put you to sleep. So, and then, whereas Seb, he's obviously got the karate background and the credentials on the feet in that sense. But then since coming to freestyle, he's developed into a super well-rounded mixed martial artist. And I guess people don't know that yet because they haven't really seen him have to utilize his wrestling and grappling and his overall MMA game up until this point because he's able to just get his work done so flawlessly on the feet and kind of just take the fight away from people in that sense. But, I mean, I feel like you saw it a little bit in the fight with Gabriel where when Gabriel would engage in the clinches against the cage and try and push Seb against the cage, Seb reversed him nearly every time and then just controlled him on the cage. And outside of that one trip in the first round, when Gabriel went for that trip again, he wasn't able to get it and Seb was able to capitalize on every position. So I feel like stylistically it's a good fight for Seb. And Seb's definitely got more ways to win because you've seen it with Seb. He can explode into the drop of a dime and sleep someone. But at the same time, he's got that high level sort of wrestling and grappling game that people haven't seen yet. So I feel like he's got more ways to win. I feel like stylistically it's a good fight for him. But it's like the fight with anyone that's fought Dimps, like you just, the job is don't get pulled into a brawl, but Dimps is so good at pulling people into a brawl. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's as much as you sort of, it should seem like such an obvious thing. Like, oh, if I don't brawl with the guy, I'm going to, I just can't brawl with the guy. But he is so good at making you fight his fight and getting the fight to where he wants it. So it's certainly not an easy task to try and get in there and fight that dude. And it's not going to be like a cakewalk. I'm under no illusions that Seb's going to have to fucking be on for the entirety of the 25 minutes if it goes that long because, any time that you're in a brawl or you're allowed Dimps to fight his fight, like, it's going to fucking suck.
Yeah, you got to, and I guess you got to step into danger at some point, don't you? So, like Dimps is a guy, like you sort of mentioned, how he caught Oliver in that first round, and that kind of turned the fight. So, he's a throwback fighter, isn't he, Dimps? Like he just likes to fight. You sort of mentioned how he wasn't sort of listening to his coaches. He just wanted to get back in there and just get back to the scrap. That's a bit of a throwback mentality, and if someone like that can catch you just once, then it can turn the tides. So yeah, it makes us, like you sort of touched on there, it's such a fascinating stylistic matchup, like just two polar opposites in terms of their striking styles, like Seb has that karate background, so they kind of they fight from a little bit of a different range, those karate guys, and then they kind of blitz forward and they explode from a further distance, whereas Dimps likes to kind of fight in a phone booth a little bit. So, yeah, who can get their game going? Can Dimps kind of, close that distance and pressure Seb? Can Seb control range? Maybe put Dimps on his back? Yeah, so many interesting questions going into that fight.
So many factors. And, obviously, I'm very confident that Seb's going to go out there and put him away and get the job done. And then when that happens, can we please make Dimps Gillies versus Michael Barber? Can we get that fight?
Yeah.
Can you imagine that fight? Imagine the violence in that fight.
Yeah.
And a takedown in that fight. Nobody's doing any of that.
God, this is Lockjaw, the matchmaker, has struck again. Yes, someone please organise that. Yeah, whether it's Hex or Eternal or someone get it done. Whether it's in a fucking car park somewhere, I don't know.
Yeah, make it happen. That's the fight I want to see after this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sign me up for that. That would be mental.
Yeah, both guys just come forward and are just violent and just don't stop. So it's going to be like a car crash that you're not going to want to look away. You're going to want to see the entirety of that.
Yeah, no takedowns in that one, I wouldn't have thought.
Nah, not at all. Not at all.
All right, and in the main event at Eternal 86, Lachlan Stitt took out the welterweight title against John Varkey. He got done, I think it was in the last round, wasn't it, by rear naked choke? Was it last round? Yeah. So I guess what do you make of Lachlan Stitt? You know, he's bounced back from his defeat a little while back pretty well. He's got the belt. Yeah, how did he go?
Yeah, it was a crazy fight. Obviously, there were so many shifts of momentum. Like, obviously, like Lachlan was able to drop John early. John was able to survive. Then he had Lachlan in danger. And it was like, watching it live especially, I had it like 2-2 going into the fifth. And it was like either guy had to, win that last round. Both guys had each other in trouble. Both guys had, had success in different ways. And even, I think the big things were, obviously, John got caught a couple of times by Lachlan on the feet where he is very dangerous and very powerful, but was then able to sort of rally and show his experience and survive. And then he was able to sort of turn the tide and, have Lachlan in trouble a couple of times as well. And then Lachlan showed improvements in his grappling because obviously when he lost, it was, in the grappling department against Peter Templer, he just was, got caught there. So he's obviously gone back and done the work and looked to improve in that area. And that kind of showed, especially against someone like John, who I've had the privilege of moving around with as well. And, he's so credentialed, so experienced. The dude, he's insanely strong. He's very technical. I can tell you that dude's not an easy dude to try and keep off you when he gets a hold of you. And then with Lachlan on the other side as well, he's so big, so explosive, so dangerous. Seems like he just has so much power. So it was a great fight. I thought it was a really good fight. And I thought, it was especially probably a really good thing for Lachlan that he had to go into that fifth round and really, dig deep to kind of go out there and get the win. And that's going to just make him that much better now moving forward, especially going into a fight with someone as dangerous as Alden Bates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like the win against John Varkey. It's obviously a really experienced guy. So it's a big tick for Lachlan, like you touched on there. 5-round fight. I think it's only his 5th pro fight or something. I think Lachlan. So
5th or 6th, something like that.
Yeah. So it's still relatively early days, and now it sets him up well for a big test, like you mentioned there with Alden Bates at Eternal 87, because Alden's obviously another highly experienced guy, and he's an absolute specimen as well. So that's a fun fight too.
Yeah, I don't see that fight going the distance. I'll just say that someone's going to sleep.
Yeah, I would have thought so, and we'll of course touch on that one in depth. In the next episode. Hopefully, we get one done in about a month's time, which will be a good time to sort of preview all the Eternal stuff. But there's another fight on that card, which is it's kind of a fun one. It's Justin Van Heerden versus Rod Costa, the trilogy. So like we kind of talked about before, you wanted to fight in August, move forward, get on another win streak. Now here's your opportunity. So I guess what's your feelings now that the cat's out of the bag, the fight's been announced, it's come together pretty quickly as you would imagine with a fight between you two. So I guess what are your feelings about that one?
I like both guys. I think both guys are really good. Both guys bring it. It'll be a good fight. I'm stoked. I'm not surprised that Rod put pen to paper. Obviously. Dude's a competitor, and obviously we've got that history of having done the dance twice, and we both starsed each other. So it's and he's obviously made it clear in a couple of interviews, especially leading up to his last fight, that if somehow it happened that it would lined up or it made sense or we could come to fruition, he would jump at the chance to fight me again. And that shows because I'd imagine that they would have offered him a rematch with Ito on the August card if he wanted it, but he decided to, this is a fight that he wanted. So it's probably got to be the easiest fight to put together in MMA for any promoter. It's just to be like, send the fight out and be like, all right, Justin, we want you to fight Rod. Rod, we want you to fight Justin. And I'd imagine that, yeah, it was like an easy thing to sort out because I got wind of it. And then the next day I walked into the gym. Joe told me it was for Costa. I said yes. And then they said, sweet. And then they're like, okay, we'll just wait. We'll wait a couple of days and we're going to, or whatever, and we're going to announce it. And then obviously I told you about it. And then, yeah, they announced it. And all done, all signed, sealed, ready, out there, ready to go. And I'm not surprised because, yeah, Rod's a competitor. He's like, he gets after it. They do a fight anyone on any notice, anywhere, anytime, same as me. So, and then it just adds to it that we have the history of having done the dance twice already, and we both kind of got to win over each other, got to finish over each other. So, yeah, I'm excited to go out there and you know, do it again for the third time back at HBS Stadium, back in Perth, and look to emulate what I did in the last outing and leave Costa unconscious on the canvas wondering what happened. Because I know that he's going to do the same thing to me. So, yeah, it makes it exciting.
So, yeah, do you feel like this is going to be another sort of evolution for you? Are we going to see a different Justin Van Heerden this time with, you know, obviously the lessons learnt from defeat against Mangos? Yeah, is this going to be another evolution right here?
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, like I said, I'm so like the fire that was there from losing, and then knowing that what it did for me last time, and it's doing the same thing now. So people can expect to see like a different level and a whole different Lockjaw when August 17th rolls around. And you know, I don't think Rod could jump that high to throw up any flying triangles or anything like that. So I think I'm good. I think we should be sweet. But nah. Actually, I was laughing about that the other day with Colby because he was saying, he's like, now that that's happened, it's never going to happen again. If anything, it'll be something else. So he's like, don't stress about that. So we were just joking about that. We're like laughing because out of the fights that we've had, like things that have happened, it's just kind of like you let it happen once, but you don't let it happen again. So yeah, I don't plan on getting flying triangled on August 17th. And I'll go as far as to say that if Rod shoots at any point, something's wrong, because that dude, I imagine, is going to want to get it back and knock me out. So we'll see what happens. But I'm certainly going to try and put my knuckles through his fucking orbital bone and leave him unconscious on the canvas again.
So the judges can have the night off.
Oh man,
August 17th.
Yeah, drink break, water break, food break. Go to the proper 12 Champions Club and enjoy some whiskey or whatever the fuck you want to do. But they're not. Yeah, the fight's not going the distance.
Love it. All right, and of course we'll get balls deep in that closer to the date on episode 47. But yeah, before we kind of wrap, we've got a fair few Aussies that have been announced for Dana White's Contender Series, Aussies and Kiwis as well. So fighters from this region are going to go and represent. So I think it might be the most that we've ever had in a Dana White's Contender Series season. So we've got, Aaron Tao, Quillan Salkild, Cody Haddon, Cameron Rouston, and Navajo Sterling have all been announced as competing on the next season. So, yeah, can you sort of touch on those? How many is that? That's 2, 4, 5, those 5. And, and I guess, like a rising tide lifts all ships, right? So, like having more fighters from this region representing over there is a good thing for everyone. So, yeah, I guess what are your feelings about those guys and the opportunities that sit ahead of them?
Yeah, it shows the level of what the Oceanic MMA, like Australia, New Zealand sort of region, where the level is of MMA. And it also shows you how we literally, being here in Australia, we have less opportunities than a lot of like stateside-based fighters and European-based fighters. And you have a lot less to work with, but it seems like fighters from this region are able to do a lot more. And it's just kind of like shown, because look at across the board now, it's no surprise that there's 5 people on this season of Contender Series, and the level's just so high now for Australian MMA and New Zealand MMA. And you can see it because it's trickling down. You can see it already. Look at these amateur fights. Look at these fights that are happening on these cards. Like even at the Eternal show that Seb just fought on, I think every single fight on the undercard was a finish. There was just crazy finishes in almost every fight and just insane high-level mixed martial arts. So I think it's insane. Like, it's such a good thing that that's happened now, and it kind of just reinforces the fact that the UFC, PFL, ONE, Bellator, all these promotions can see that this is a talent-rich place, and they want to sort of jump on that, right? So I feel like for up-and-coming fighters who are just starting their pro careers, or they're kind of sort of early days, it gives them that extra motivation, because they know, like, it used to be like, there's a lot sort of the pathway was a lot harder to sort of get to that next level, whereas now it's kind of like people are watching, there's eyes on this region, so you go out there and do your thing, tick the right boxes, and you're going to get to where you want to get to.
Yeah, definitely. And there's these guys have got a big opportunity to go and do that. But one guy that has sort of bypassed the Contender Series is Stu Nickel. He's signed for the UFC 305 card. So yeah, it's another Aussie going to represent. And I guess that that flyweight division gets another Aussie. So yeah, what do you make of Stu Nickel and his opportunity in Perth? No, Perth?
He's gone straight in, doing the thing at 305. So if he goes out there and wins, and you can see what kind of can come from that. Like, look at Stephen Oseg, he got signed, got a win, got, especially in that sort of division, there's almost an argument that there's probably a likely chance that even if you don't already in your first fight, you're probably going to get a win and then get thrown straight into that top 15. So it's a division where if you go out there, win, you're active, you do the work, you can fight for a world title in no time. Like Steve Oseg's kind of shown that. Obviously, everyone's path and everyone's sort of thing is going to be different. I'm not saying that, Stu Nickel's going to win 2 fights and fight for a world title, but it's certainly awesome to see him on the card. And he's going to be making his debut here at home, which is kind of like best case scenario. And then if he goes out there and wins, it kind of just sets him up to be in a very competitive division. If you look at it now, I mean, across the board, flyweight's probably one of the most competitive divisions in the UFC. And just in general, for me, like looking at the people that are in division, you got like Kai Kara France, Steve Erceg, Brandon Moreno, Pantoja, Manel Karp. Like it's stacked. It's stacked, and it never used to be like that. Like it used to be one of those divisions where you had a couple of people that would kind of like with a cream of the crop, and there was only like a handful of guys. But now it seems like everyone in the division is an absolute monster.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, they're definitely filling out that weight class. Let me put you on the spot here. Who's the next cab off the rank? Like for an opportunity with a big promotion, who's obviously aside from yourself, who's the next person who's ready to make that step up?
I would say Drillage. I'm surprised that Drillage hasn't been picked up, whether that's for contenders or for 305, and potentially that could be with, if I was the UFC, that's what I would do. I'd go Nickel and Drillage to debut on the same card, get after each other. And we kind of, for everyone that's been following the scene here, they can get that question answered, like who wins that fight. But yeah, it's hard to go past Drillage, man. Like he's just been like absolutely sleeping people, like send them into the shadow realm. So yeah, it's hard. It'd be hard to sort of look past him at the moment, because obviously there's a bunch of people that are like doing their thing and they're at like a really good point. But for someone like him, like he's just gone and ran through everyone they put in front of him, and he's asked for those matchups with like your Stu Nickel and your Sean Gauci, and trying to get those to happen. Because obviously he's confident that he could do the exact same thing to those guys. That's what he's not able to do now. But yeah, the guy just gets after it. He's been active. He's sleeping people. So I feel like, yeah, Anthony Drillage should get the next sort of shot. That's kind of who I'd go with.
Yeah, it's a fair call. Ticks all the boxes, really, doesn't it? It's got the win streak, like you say, activity, and finishes. Finishes is obviously the big one that all the promotions look for, not just the UFC. So, yeah, surely an opportunity is not too far away for Anthony Drillage. So, yeah, and another episode hopefully won't be too far away for the Absolutely 100% podcast. So episode 47, we should be early August. So we're going to try and do these about once a month. So that'll be a good time to sort of get stuck into some of the upcoming fights next month. So until then, Lockjaw, what do you want to take us off with?
Fucking tune in this weekend, because Masvidal's boxing Nate Diaz. I'm going to watch it. It's going to be a shit show, but I'm going to watch it. So if you're not aware of that, if you haven't been keeping up with what's been happening, tune in this weekend, because it's going to be a fun one.